Good evening, and thank you for coming. My name is Tom Vasti. I'm the Vice President of the East Bronx History Forum. Richard Vitaco is the President, and he's going to be my stage manager. This is an ugly story, and I do not mean to make light of it by any reason, but the cop mentality, the gallows humor, and some of the things that were reported and are on official record just defy belief. That's what is almost funny about it. You don't want to file this under no good deed goes unpunished, but as we get into the story, you'll understand what I'm talking about. The East Bronx History Forum meets every third Wednesday of the month. Thanks to Father Sal, I said he was coming, he lets us have this room. We don't usually meet in July and August, but we don't usually have air conditioning either. So thanks to him, we can meet here, and we come up with various topics, usually from east of the Bronx River. Every once in a while we cross over, but the late Bill Toomey, who started the organization, Rich and I are charter members, and he said, we got to get a little more East Bronx stuff going, and that's why we started, and we've been successful over the years. Depending on the topic, we can get a pretty good crowd. This is an exceptional crowd because of the topic. It's not just a story of Alfred Loreto, but it's of the neighborhood that he lived in 75 years ago. Now, to put a little perspective into it, I was 3 months old when this happened. I'm a retired police officer, and my first 10 years on the job, I went to 10 funerals. And every time I went to one, I said, that's it, I'm not going again. And I wrote another one, and now they start to blend in. And this particular event, because it's in the neighborhood, I've lived on Hone Avenue for 68 years, and I played in Loreto Park. My mother took me there for a pre-kindergarten kind of thing in the early 50s when the park was brand new. I had no idea who Loreto was. The plaque is on the wall of the park house. There's 2 plaques, in fact. And I said, what's the story here? And nobody could tell me what I wanted to know. Through a series of events, I was able to obtain the police reports. If I start talking about UF-61s and DD-5s, you don't understand what I'm talking about, just put your hand up and know somebody will correct me, and I'll let you know what we're talking about. There's a lot of people to thank for here, Richie in particular. Dorothy's not here. Jorge is the archivist. If we want to find something out, we go to Jorge and he finds it. It's that kind of thing. There are members of the Loreto family here, a lot of retired police officers here. I'm not going to point anybody out. You want to make yourself known, that's your business. Okay? Alfred Loreto is a 17-year veteran of the police department. He's nominally assigned to the 4-8 precinct, the Bathgate Avenue station, right off of Tremont. But he's on what they call in the military detached service. He's working in the court division. The court division at the time was part of the city of New York. It's no longer part of that. The state runs the court division now. He's assigned to the warrant squad. He came in rather late. 1933, he was over 30 years old. And his class is very, very small. This was the Depression. Lucky he got hired at all. He's a member of the Honor Legion, indicating that he performed some feat that garnered a high level of departmental recognition. He was involved in at least one heavy-duty gunfight, and if not more. And 17 years, he's 49 years old. We gotta take it easy for a while. He lives 1870 Herring Avenue, right off the corner of Rhineland. And he's on vacation. That's a very important point to make, because according to the patrol guide, at the time it was rules and procedures. Police officers are required to be armed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except on sick report or on vacation. So technically, he's covered. The only thing he's got in his pockets, his shield, which I didn't bring mine, right? His shield, some loose change, dollar bill, and his car keys. Now, what is he doing? He's doing something that the homeowners in this room know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a Friday night. He's putting out the garbage for Saturday morning. And he looks up and down the block. It's something I do to this day. I don't know if it's because of this or it's because of what an instructor in the police academy told me 40 some odd years ago. We had just been issued our guns, and we asked him, when do we carry it? When do we not carry it? And he told us, I don't take the garbage out without it. If you knew about the Loreto case, he was a young guy, the instructor, so I doubt it, but it's just something that I do. So he's putting out the garbage, he's not armed. And he looks up and down the block and he sees something that captures his attention, looking east towards Morris Park, south towards Morris Park. The next protagonist in this story is Ralph Squalia. Squalia is a butcher. There's about 6 generations of Squalias. They're all butchers. And there's a couple of articles in the Bronx Times that specify this. Squalia owns the Newcastle Meat Market at 752 Morris Park Avenue. The police reports have it down as 762. There's no such number. Mistake number 1. Squire is locking up, and he claims his own testimony. He's got the day's receipts right here. Upwards of $1,500. That's half a year's pay, police department. That's over 2/3 a year pay for my father in the post office. He gets in his car, which he might have parked on Morris Park Avenue. I don't think there were parking meters there yet. Parking meters come to the city in 1935, but they're not on Morris Park yet. Anybody knows different? Let me know. It takes him all of 7 minutes to drive home. Why? Well, number 1, there's no traffic. And number 2, there's no traffic. It's lights. He could go home right down Morris Park Avenue. He's going to hit a light. I don't know if the Matthews Avenue light was there. The light on Bronxdale Avenue was there. The Radcliffe, because of PS 83. I used to cross there, go to school. Alerting, and the next light is Williamsbridge Road. After that, there's nothing. All the way down to Eastchester Road. That's the Loreto house. You got Squatty's house?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Squire comes home, either Morris Park or he takes Rhineland and comes up the block. All Loreto has to do is be 30 seconds late or 30 seconds after, and he's not going to see anything. Squire pulls down the block. Now, parking is not a problem. not like today. Why? One reason is there's 50% less cars. Walk down your block and count every other car. That's what's missing. And anyway, the other side of Williamsbridge Road, there's nothing there on one side. Jacoby Hospital in Van Etten, the tubercular hospital, just opened a couple of years before. Einstein Hospital, forget it. It wouldn't be here for another 4 years. Mary Higgins Clark talks about Suicide Hill. From Newport Avenue, was straight down to Eastchester Road, a garbage can cover, a piece of cardboard, and you went right across Eastchester Road and you came up on the other side. That's why it's called Suicide Hill. It's within, there was no traffic. Squire goes to pull in his driveway. He has to pull in his driveway because up until 1950, on the administrative code of the city of New York, it was illegal to park your car on the street overnight. That's why there's a lot of ramshackle garages and garages that were added on to houses, and very easy to see a garage that was added on. It's no longer enforced. The police department says forget it, and it was removed after 1950. But that's why any houses in the 1930s that are built all have garages. So he goes to pull in his driveway to go in his garage, and he can't. There's a car blocking his driveway. Starts leaning on the horn. His wife comes to the door. Oh yeah, some in-law. Who else? Visiting. They got to move the car. As he's waiting to pull in the driveway, what caught Loreto's eye? Across the street from Squire's house. They make their move. Two individuals. One is Joseph Corvo. He's 32 years old. He lives on DeKalb Avenue in the Bronx, Brooklyn. I looked at his address, and I looked at the apartment building it's supposed to be. 100% Jewish. What is this guy doing there? This is the address he gave. Now, whether he lived there or not, he's crashing there or whatever. He said he's got a basement apartment. They buy it. Corbo has a B number. Anybody want to volunteer what a B number is? It's your introduction to the criminal justice system, courtesy of the city of New York. He's got a criminal record. And I happen to have Corbo's B number. And when I called Albany to get the Department of Corrections, I catch a correction officer. It's his last day on the job, and he's looking for something to do. And I give him the B number, I give him Corpo's name, and he starts pulling the bit, as they call it. Anytime he went to jail, anytime he was released, anytime he maxed out. I said, oh, we got a live one here. The other individual is barely 20 years old. His name is Rudolph Santobello. He lives on Wickham Avenue. Wickham Avenue is all the way up by Nereid, you know, the 2 blocks, and you're in Mount Vernon. Small Italian-American enclave there. Now, how did these two guys get here? According to the investigation, Corbo and Santobello meet at Allerton and White Plains Road. What's at Allerton and White Plains Road? Number 2 train. How they got there is another story. They come downstairs, and what's downstairs? There's a hack stand. And I remember the hack stand at White Plains Road and Pelham Parkway. You come down the train, you jump in a metered medallion taxi. There used to be one on the Concourse and Tremont Avenue as well. For some reason, the cab driver remembers them. They got his trip ticket, detectives went on the investigation, and he remembers driving them to Pelham Parkway and Williamsbridge Road. They get out of the car. You know the big apartment houses there on Pelham Parkway? Not in 1950. There's a lot of nothing over there. It's difficult to find a picture because other than Percy Loomis Spear, who was the unofficial photographer, to the city of New York. They took pictures of this stuff. Nobody takes a picture of nothing. There they are met by two individuals. Now bear in mind, Corbo and Santabello are not from the neighborhood. Somebody's got to take them by the hand, literally. They're seated in a 1948-49 Mercury. That's Biscayne blue, according to the description. Now remember, this is 5 years after the war. And the cars were brown, and they were gray and black. And this is unusual, bright color. You got the car, Richie?
I think so.
Yeah, there it is. Notice anything unusual about that car? Those white wall tires. They were extra. They were at least $2, $3, $4 extra. Everybody in the neighborhood knew that car from the white wall tires. Not the kind of car you want to use to be inconspicuous. Who's seated in the car? The finger man, as we are told, is Edward Delala. He lives on Haight Avenue. His family is in carting and private sanitation. This information comes from Anthony Guillermo, retired from the 3-4 and Central Park, and he knew a lot about a lot. I'm sorry I never got to talk to Anthony more. The wheelman of this car, we're going to call it the Mystery Mercury, because the wheelman doesn't own it, he didn't steal it. Well, whose is it? The wheelman is Giacomo Reyna. Remember the name Reyna, because that's going to come up frequently. His father, Gaetano Reyna, is a charter member of La Cosa Nostra. And his legitimate front is ice distribution in the Bronx and East Harlem. Ice was very, very important pre-refrigeration days. My father told me he thought 1950-51 we had a television set before we had a refrigerator. So Reyna lives in the neighborhood, Delala lives in the neighborhood, one guy on 8, one guy on Hone, and they're sitting there and they wait for Corbo and Santabello to get in. But suddenly Delala gets cold feet. He wants out. He tells them what they have to know. They rat him right out because of what happens, and he's gone. So it's just Reyna in the car, and he drives Corbo and Santabello to Herring and Wyman. They get out of the car, and he parks the car, no problem parking, and he waits. They walk down the block just before Loreto comes out of the house, and that's when Loreto sees them. As soon as Squalia pulls up, and he can't pull in his driveway, remember, summertime, no air conditioning, windows are down, Corbo and Santabello make their move. They run up to Squalia's car, they force their way in, they squish him in between the two of them. Bench seats, no bucket seats yet. And they say to him, apparently he knows what this means. Hello, Ralph. We're butchers too, over on Morris Avenue. And they proceed to beat the brains out of him and take control of the car, back it out, and run down to Morrispark Avenue. Loreto sees all this. He yells up to his son, Alfred Jr., he's 21 years old. He's on the porch of the house, and he says, Ralph's got a problem. Get my gun. Unofficially, we don't know if this is what he said. Gets in his own car, takes off. After Squalia's car. When he gets to Lakewood Avenue, know where Lakewood Avenue is? Runs parallel with the Morris Park and perpendicular to Herring Avenue. It only runs 1 or 2 blocks. Standing on a corner is a neighbor of Loreto. His name is Fred Goebel. He's a fireman, and he's assigned to the engine company on White Plains Road. These are all neighborhood people. Coming down Lakewood Avenue are the McMahons. They live in Pinchot Place. Father and son. The son is the same age as Alfred. We don't know if Alfred knows him or knew of him, but they hear Loreto yell out, "Fred, Ralph's in trouble. Follow me." He doesn't get in the car with Loreto. He's on foot. The McMahons hear that. They follow. Whether Alfred Jr. ever responded to his father's request, we don't know. But he pulls out. So now you got a caravan. You got Squalia in the car. You got Loreto behind him. You got Fred Goebel on foot. You got the McMahons. Alfred Jr. finally pulls up. And then the Mystery Mercury, the Biscayne Blue with the big white wall tires. They pull out onto Morris Park Avenue, and there's no traffic light. There's no nothing over there. Squalia is able to regain control of his car. If this is a tree on a tree standard transmission, that's very interesting. You know that. But he's able to gain control and turn it into Yates Avenue against traffic. Who's walking down from Tupper's Pharmacy? 9-year-old Rosemary Scalfarnia. And she's working with a 7-year-old friend who doesn't remember anything, but I spoke to Rosemary. And she's got the ice cream cone in her hand, and she's walking on Morris Park. That was just before they closed. That's the only thing up there at the time. See the building behind Einstein? Nothing is there. They cross over Pembroke, and they're walking to Herring. As she gets to the corner, she's about to go home. Here comes the car, Squalia in it, screeching right turn, bang, into the telephone pole on Yates and Morris Park. Squalia bounces off the windshield, is knocked unconscious, the car stalls out. Corbo and Santabello can't get the car started. So what do? They exit the car. Who's coming at them? Alfred Loreto. Corbo and Santabello had been carrying paper bags, and inside the paper bags were illegal firearms. You don't expect them to be legal. One is a .32 caliber Iver Johnson. It's a top rate model. I used to have one. It was an antique. I shouldn't have sold it. But we got a good buck for it. And the other paper bag has a Star. Star is a Spanish make. Not a very good Spanish make, as we'll see. But who does the shooting? Well, depends on who you ask. One of them points the gun at Loreto and fires 2 shots. One completely misses him. And the police report says they're looking for it in 1736 Yates Avenue. Well, they're still looking for it because there is no 1736 Yates Avenue. The last house on the block was 1732. The other shot does not miss. Another ½ inch and it misses Loreto's shoulder, but it hits him in the clavicle, the collarbone. Rips, deflects down his heart, his lung lodges in his liver, and he keels over. He is dead where he fell. Now, Alfred Jr. has to see this. And now, Fred Goebel is enraged. He charges at the gunman, and he gets a face full of click. They say that's the loudest noise you'll ever hear. With that, now both Corbo and Santabella are in sport jackets. This is the problem, because once they take those sport jackets off, what are they wearing? A t-shirt. But so is 90% of Morris Park wearing t-shirts. It's summer, like a day like this. In the movies, the gunman would take a gun and throw it at, and then, run away. This is not the movies. They start running, but they don't know where to run. They're not from the neighborhood. Up Morris Park to Williamsbridge Road. They make the quick left, and they're running down Morris Park to Van Ness Avenue. Now the hill on Van Ness used to be a lot steeper because they've graded Williamsbridge Road in the subsequent years. There's a row of houses, they're brand new, built in the late 40s, and there's a row of houses on Tomlinson that are brand new, built at the same time. Across the street on Tomlinson is a big empty lot. It's a whole square block. I was told it was a dump. There were rats and garbage, terrible. 2 points for Robert Moses because he turned that big empty lot into a park, but not yet. Now they're running. The first building they come to is St. Francis Xavier School. It was built in 1937. The next building is the newly constructed St. Francis Xavier Church, but it's not open yet. It wouldn't be open for another 2 weeks when Cardinal Spellman comes up, officiates, and opens the church. Across the street from the church, where St. Francis School Annex is, nothing there. The convent, where the good sisters live today, nothing there. Their convent is on Lurdy and Van Ness. And if you look carefully at the stained glass windows, you will see religious motif. You know how many times I walked past that and never noticed that until I was told about it. Where the rectory is, St. Francis Xavier, nothing there. There's houses on that side and on the other side of Van Ness. John McCord's Storer, the undertaker, he's got a shingle hanging out. John McCord's Storer. I thought his name was John McCord. He owned the warehouse. I didn't know what it meant. I was 7 years old the first time I saw it. They're running. Fred Goebel, the McMahons are right behind them. If they didn't do what they did, these guys would have been in the wind. And who are you looking for? 2 guys with t-shirts? Good luck. Nobody knows them. They're not from the neighborhood. They get to home and make a quick right. And now they're running up towards Morris Park. No traffic lights, no nothing. They run across Morris Park. Fred Goebel, the fireman, yells to the owner of the candy store where Emilio's Pizzeria is today. He says, these 2 guys just shot a cop, call the police. Guy goes over, gets the phone. How do you call the police? There's no 911. Phone 0. Willie Tomlin gets on and says, number please, and give me the police. Spring 3100. And now the alarm goes out. It takes about 15 minutes for this all to happen. Because when Rosemary Fasconia went home, she told her parents what she saw, and they banished her to her room. Don't be making up stories. Go upstairs. I don't know if they took the ice cream cone away from her, but within 15 minutes, they realized she wasn't making anything up. And she was an eyewitness. They cross Morris Park, and they run up to home. Now, why on home? Well, it seems that Giacomo Reyna, the real man, lives on home, 1800 block. And he runs upstairs, this is according to the testimony of his in-laws, maybe they didn't like him. He tells his wife, we're going on vacation. Oh, nice. Where are we going? I don't know. When are we going? All right now. And he's in the wind. And you don't hear about Rayner until the second week in August. Now, did they know where Rayner lived? Did they? When they get to Rhinelander, they finally separate. These two dummies are running with traffic. All right, there's no traffic, but you don't do that. You run against traffic. The bets with the bad guys do. We'll do Corbo first, because he's a little easier. He makes a right turn, runs to Learning, runs up Learning, and he's got to be out of wind. How much running can you do? And he ducks in between 1911 and 1913, Learning Avenue, and he puts his hands in his pockets like he lives there. The Bronx Press Review interviewed a woman who lives on that, in 1911, I believe it is, and she's washing dishes. And she looks out, and all of a sudden, cops are running down her alleyway with their guns out. What the hell is going on? They pull Corbo out, no resistance, puts his hands up, throw him in the car. The two officers who make the arrest is a sergeant from the 4-1 precinct. What is he doing there? This is the 4-3 precinct. 8th Division, they come over, 4-1, 4-3 to 4-5. Now, how they got there and who directed them, a little up in the air. Anyway, the McMahons, that's him, that's one of them, back to Morris Park and Yates for another show. Santabello is another story. When you came in on the back wall, there's a picture of St. Clair's School, and it's got the cornerstone that says 1950. Well, it must have been late 1950, because in July of 1950, there's nothing there. Santabello runs through, comes out on Paulding Avenue, and eventually winds up on Colden Avenue, and Neil Goebel is right behind him. Two of my longtime neighbors, John McMorrow, who lived down the block from me, and Joe Graziano lived up the block from me. When I told them what I was doing, oh, I remember that. Now I said, whoa. And McMorrow lived on Bogart and Rhinelander, right across the street from PS 83, because he was an assistant custodian. And he says, the outside, brick apartment house, it's hot, and here comes a radio car screaming down Rhinelander Avenue. And he says, I wonder where they're going. They got to run into Goebel, the fireman, who points out Santabello. And this is on Colden and Neil. Right directly across the street from the neighborhood celebrity Jake Lamont. They don't know if Jake was home. Anyway, in the car, there's a veteran officer, Martin Down, and rookie officer, Eugene Lowry. Lowry would be interviewed 30 years later by the chief, the civil service newspaper. And he mentioned that he caught 2 cop killers in his career. This was one, and at the end of his career, he caught another one. Unlike Corbo, Santabello does not come quietly. There's a name for that in police jargon. It's called a cop fighter. You want to fight? Well, we'll fight you. Corbo is given his, Santabello is given as good as he gets, so much so that Martin Down, the veteran officer, breaks his hand. Lowry says, I believe it's in that article, pulls out his trusty service revolver, sticks it in Santabello's ribs and says, one more punch, and it's over. And Santabello finally submits. They throw the cuffs on him. Goebel's got to be right there. And they put him in a radio car, and Goebel tells him Yates and Morris Park. My other neighbor, Joe Graziano, lived on Tomlinson, across the street from the filthy, dirty, empty lot. It's the last house on the block before the medical building is there. Not then, there's nothing there. He comes out of the house, he's wearing a white t-shirt, crosses the empty lots, gets into Williamsbridge Road, crosses Williamsbridge Road, goes down the hill to Yates Avenue, just as the radio car pulls up with one of them. I don't know who, he doesn't know which one. But one of the officers says to Alfred Jr., "Hey kid, you want 5 minutes with him? Get in the car and we'll look the other way." Alfred Jr. is too distraught to even think about such a thing, because he's still got to go home and tell his mother she's a widow. With that, everybody's in the car. We've got a sergeant on the scene, which is nice. And, all right, down to the station house. Where is the station house? There we go. The 4-3 precinct, 1415 Williamsbridge Road, directly opposite the courthouse. This ran from that little triangle where Westchester Square meets Tremont and Williamsbridge Road. I've been told stories about that station house, and you took your life in your hand when you went in it, because it was falling down. It would eventually get closed down in 1959, and they opened up a new one on Benedict Avenue, inside of Park. Now, what happens here, I got from a detective, John Kelly, who caught the case. It's his responsibility. They take Corbo and Santabello upstairs to the squad rooms. They put them in opposite rooms, leave the doors open where they could see each other. Being that Santabello wants to be a tough guy, they go to work on him. He refuses to talk. He says nothing. Corbo throws his hands up in the air and says, "What do you want to know?" He did it. I didn't do nothing. I was just there, etc., etc. The wind-up is, the gun just went off. Yeah, all right. We heard that one before. They get arraigned. They get booked. They get arraigned. The trial is the following year, May 1st, and it lasts until May 31st. They're both convicted of murder, first degree. The penalty in those days, execution in Sing Sing. But, and this is where the story starts to get fuzzy, and I don't like it right here. The jury says, "Oh, he's only 20 years old. Can he get life imprisonment?" Famous last words. Both of them, it's up to the judge now. Life imprisonment. Corbo, I think, goes to Sing Sing. Santabello, I know, goes to Attica. If you ever see the television show, The Big House, they do Alcatraz, they do Atlanta, and they do Sing Sing, and they do Attica. And I'm watching, this friend of mine calls me, he says, "Hurry up, put it on." The alumni that were in Attica, and there is the B card for Rudolph Santabello, 15 years for killing the cop in the Bronx, Uncle Freddie. I said, "What the hell happened here?" It seems that Corbo does 9 years before he's released, and Santabello does 14 years before he's released. There were 2 more trials. Why? New York Times has a big article about coercion, that Corbo saw the treatment that Santabello got, that's why he confessed. You don't need a confession. You got 4 eyewitnesses. Each time they have a trial, the charges get dropped. Goes from murder 1 to murder 2 and then down to manslaughter. But Ralph Squire, the butcher, he's not mentioned in any of this. What happened to Squire? Corbo is in and out of jail for the rest of his life. And when I spoke with a correction officer up in Albany, Corbo's bid terms, as they call them, suddenly comes to an end. He either died in prison or he was killed in prison. Santabello is a whole nother story. He gets out in 1964. That detective, John Kelly, is now squad commander, a lieutenant in the 4-3 precinct. And he knows all about this case. Now, we got to go back to the investigation and what happens with the car. Somebody got a plate number, and the detectives get the plate number. They call up to Albany. There's no computers that you can do this instantaneous. You got a phone number, you call, this is the plate number. You wake up the state trooper who goes over to the phone and the car catalog, whatever he's got. I don't know how they do it, if it's numerically or alphabetically. And they get the registered owner for that vehicle. His name is Gene Pinello, and he lives 1725 Paul Dean Avenue. Next morning, detectives pull up. They can't pull right in front of Pinello's house. Why? Because there's the car. The last thing I would expect to see the car there. They walk over, knock on the door, show them the shield. Eugene Pinello? Yeah. This your car? Yeah. Where were you last night? I was home all night. What about your car? Oh, I loaned my car to Mildred Rayner, Giacomo Rayner's sister. And this is where the dog and pony show starts. Oh yeah, where she live? 2010 Lurking Avenue, right off of Neal. Okay. She come and pick up the car? No, I drove the car to her house, and I gave her the keys, and I walked home. Somebody wants to borrow your car, you make them come to you, you don't go to them. I didn't like that part. So they go see Mildred, whose baptismal name is Carmela, but she's also known as Millie or Mildred. She is the daughter of Gaetano Rayner. Now, what happens to Gaetano Rayner? Well, it seems that, read from the Valachi papers, a spoiler alert. Now, Anthony Guglielmo told me that she was the daughter of Gaetano Rayner, February 26, 1930, 8:10 p.m. when Gaetano Rayner, who has a pistol permit, by the way, legitimate, or as illegitimate as you can be. He lives on Rochambeau Avenue, and he's leaving the premises of 1522 Sheridan Avenue, right off of 172nd Street. And he is met by person or persons unknown who fired both barrels of a sawed-off shotgun, and that was the end of Gaetano Rayner. It is believed that certain parties wanted a little piece of the action of the ice business. And Reno told them where to go and what they could do to themselves while they're there. I said, oh yeah? The hitman was believed to be Vito Genovese. And who sanctioned the hit? Might have been Charlie Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello. There's a lot of names you're going to get kicked around in this. So, Mildred starts telling her story. That she borrowed Gene Pinello's car to go shopping. Okay, well, there's not many places to go shopping in the Bronx in those days. You can go down to the Hub, 149th Street, you can go to Westchester Square, Cross County, it's not there yet. Where did you go shopping? Morrispark Avenue. Need a car? Go shopping in Morrispark Avenue? You know, I had to go to the bakery, I had to go to the dress store. Remember Marie Teen's dress store on Morrispark? It was off between Home and Paulding. And I stopped to talk to a few people. I picked up the car about 4:45. By 5:30, I came home, parked it in front of my house. And at about 11:15, Gene Pinello walks over, picks up the car, and drives it home. Now, you want to believe that, that's your business. Her brother, Giacomo, was seen in the car. Well, he's a person of interest, if not a material witness. He's in the wind, Delala is in the wind. Delala shows up July 31st, surrenders to the district attorney. Now, why would he do that? You go to the station house. He must know that there's an alarm out for him. He's immediately arrested. Raina shows up August 7th. Goes into the district attorney's office. There's an alarm out for him too. He's immediately arrested. All charges are dropped. Man's material witness. How do you do this? Corvo Santabello had a high-priced lawyer. His name was Peter Sabatino. He's the William Kunstler of his day. He used to take all these radical cases, and he'd take mob-related cases because they paid in cash. One of Sabatino's clients is Fritz Kuhn from the 1930s. You got to be a devotee of the History Channel. You know, Fritz Kuhn was president of the German-American Bund, American Nazi, who got caught embezzling, and he gets 14 years in jail for his problem. But that's the kind of cases that Peter Sabatino took, and it's not unusual that he would take this case. Loreto's funeral is attended by no less alike than His Honor William O'Dwyer. While the investigation is going on in the 4-3, O'Dwyer shows up, and Kelly told me everything stopped. And O'Dwyer is ranting and raving because the week before, a police captain, 240 Center Street, closes the door to his office, takes out a service revolver, and blows his brains out because he doesn't want to answer a subpoena to the grand jury that is investigating the Harry Gross affair. Who's Harry Gross? He's a Brooklyn bookmaker who claims that it's costing him $1 million a year to stay in business because of all the graft, ISIS, that he has to pay. So they convene a grand jury and they start issuing subpoenas. And when this police captain got one, he couldn't handle it anymore. The word also is that Mayor O'Dwyer is going to get a subpoena. But who bails him out? No less alike than the President of the United States, Harry S. Truman, who says, we need an ambassador in Mexico. And O'Dwyer leaves Gracie Mansion on a moment's notice, sets up shop in Mexico City, and remains there until the term of the grand jury expires, along with Harry Truman's presidency. The word was, O'Dwyer was the bad man for the Democratic Party on the East Coast. I can't prove any of that. But, subsequent to all that, I worked at Gracie Mansion for 16 years. I made security. We used to have a lot of receptions, and a lot of heavy hitters. One of the old timers there told me, must have been just before I got there, they have a reception, and who shows up? Sloane Simpson. She's a model, an actress, and the second wife of William O'Dwyer. He goes up to her and he says, "Aren't you Sloane Simpson?" Well, the woman is flattered that anybody remembered her. This is 15 years later. And she says, "Listen, I got all my husband's papers. I'm going to throw them out. Does anybody want them?" This senior officer contacts the curator at Gracie Mansion. He sends a truck down from municipal archives, and they have all O'Dwyer's papers. I guess they're available. They ain't going to say anything. I would like to look at them sometime just to see for the dates in question where O'Dwyer was and what he was doing. The police captain who killed himself has 6,000 police officers show up at his funeral. Dwyer is leading the procession. 10 days later, another police funeral, inspector's funeral, 5,000 cops showed up. They lined up on Rhinelander Avenue from Paulding to Williamsbridge Road. I was told that people in the neighborhood started cooking and they were giving out hamburgers and hot dogs. The wake for, I speak to family members and nobody could answer this one. The wake for Alfred Loreto is held at Walter B. Cook Funeral Home, 190th Street and Jerome Avenue. That's the other end of the world. I mean, this funeral home's all here. Maybe it was bigger, they could put more people in. I don't know the reason. Anyway, interment is in St. Raymond Cemetery. Rich, you got the?
St. Raymond's?
Yeah, the tombstone. There it is. One of our members, Anthony Pashada, just emailed me before I got here, and he said, "I just cleaned off the radar stone." Anthony makes a hobby of this cleaning over, especially police officers, and he knows a lot. He knew a lot more than I did. It's right off, it's in section 16, right off of Whitmore Avenue. That's Lindbergh Alley, where the money was thrown over to the alleged kidnappers of Charles Lindbergh's son. A lot of history right there. There's more. I have a lot more, but we'll be here all night if I get into that. So, any questions? And if you do, I've got more. Go ahead. Anybody? I think I was that thorough.
Did they find the gun?
Oh, good thing you said that. Forgot all about that. As Corvo and Santobello are running up Van Ness Avenue, I forget this. One of them tosses the gun into the empty lot. Probably where the bocce courts are today. The only reason they can know that is that Corvo had to tell them where it was. Emergency service recovers the gun 5 o'clock the next morning. So now they got the gun, they got the ballistics test, they have the bullet wound in Loreto, and that's the gun. The other gun, the Ivor Johnson top break, broken open, is in the back of Squallier's car with the 5 loose rounds, this is a 5-shot, on the floor. Corporal says, "That's my gun." Then he says, "Well, I don't know, I had the gun and went off." You can't get a straight answer out of these guys. Anyway, they got enough eyewitnesses that they don't need that. But thank you for reminding me. about the gun. A little more on the funeral mass. Right upstairs, St. Clair's Church, Monsignor Francis Canini, who was the founder and pastor of the church, is assisted by 2 police officers who are acting as altar servants. Now, I don't want to bother Father Emmanuel, I gotta ask Father Sal. The Loreto family asks that Ralph Squire not be permitted in the church for the funeral mass. Now, I don't know if this is something that happens on occasion, because the church is open to anybody, if you can fit. The church is obviously packed, but that had nothing to do with it, so that's another odd thing about it. Santobello is in and out of trouble for the rest of his life. It seems that he ran a horse parlor, a betting room, 844 Morrispark Avenue. I finally passed that thing 1,000 times. I had to go in there and look, and it's very nondescript office, but that's today. I'm talking 25, 30 years ago. What else did I miss? I think that's it. All right, let me give you a little detail. That's Squalia in the ambulance being attended by a doctor. Doctors rode in ambulances in those days. And you can see he's all banged around. The first thing he does when he wakes up, there's the $1,500. That's what he claims he's got in his pocket. But this is an Irish Catholic and Italian Catholic neighborhood. Nobody eats meat on Friday. You eat fish. Well, you take it, you put it in a freezer. No freezers in 1950. Refrigerator. We didn't have a refrigerator until 1951. You had an icebox. Nick DeBrino, the unofficial, official historian from Morris Park, interviewed his mother for me. And she lived to be over 100. And she remembers going into Squire's butcher shop. And the housewives of the day went shopping every day for that night's meal. Because the most you could do with it is put it in the icebox, which is only good as long as you had ice. So, $1,500. Squire's got something else going on. When I went to John Colazzi, the publisher of the Bronx Times, I gave him the article. I said, I didn't want anything for it, I just like it published. He gave me a 2-page spread. And as he's reading it, he stops and he yells out, "Hey, Pop!" And this little old Italian guy walks over, and he says, "Yeah." He says, was Uncle Ralph a horse player? And the old man says, "Yeah, I think so." Well, we're not charging Squire with anything. It's not illegal to be a horse player unless you are not paying off on your losses. That's what this appears to be. And Santobello supposedly says eventually that they were hired to collect a gambling debt on a percentage basis. I never heard of that. You got hired, get the money and give it to who hired you. What's the percentage? So there's all little things like that that just don't make any sense. All right, plenty of newspaper articles. That's Corbo coming out. That's Squalia, he's all beat up. That's Santobello. Those are the days when, hey, look at the camera. And if you didn't want to look at the camera, they made you look at the camera. There's Fred Goebel, the fireman. That's the parking lot of the Woodmanston Inn, right where Loreto Park is today. You got the picture of the park, Richard?
We had it ready for the back, so.
So 5,000 marched in the parade. They beat the chair, all right. Somewhere along the line, they cut a deal for something. They didn't have to plead guilty to lesser charge. They had them dead to rights. I don't know why that happened, but there's a little corruption involved somewhere along the line, and it did not involve the police department. They did what they had to do. This goes up the line. They sent the ball later in life. They got him shooting from inside the car. Rosemary Fasconia says no. They were outside the car, and it looked like they were waltzing. Which is a 9-year-old. Guy's got in a scuffle, and that's what it looked like. And finally one of them broke free, and that's when Loreto was shot. There's the firehouse on White Plains Road. Looks the same to me.
That's where Gold will work, right?
Yeah. Clubhouse, the racetrack. All right, there's the plaque that's on the wall in Loreto Park. John 13:15, I think it is. No greater love hath any man than he laid down his life for his friends. That says it all. Thank you.